Drennan here with Fairbairn Protocol H2H. We're going to go into a little area about generalized weaponry use in the Fairbairn system. People are pretty familiar with the system and how it works and everything. For example, knife, very few movements. We have cutting across, of course, to both directions. We have cutting down on the angle, both directions. And of course, we can do that up top and down the bottom. We have what I always teach is a snake bite, which is that out snap cut, where you're going after fingers and quick to face and this kind of thing. And of course, we have the lunge, where we come out and strike over or under. But it's also a basic thing, and we understand the concept of staying behind that weapon. We understand that the fingers latch around. We understand that Fairbairn, in his videos we see, actually has thumb behind, pushing the blade to a large degree. Again, not 100% to anything, which is wonderful because that gives us the advantage when we go to a single edge weapon. And in that case, that idea of the thumb being behind, and where Fairbairn rolls the hand over, Applegate does the same thing, by the way. He rolls over and does the cut. So again, you have that opportunity to move in that fashion and to maintain those cuts in that way. And so we have these opportunities to stay behind, to cut and snap and move. So that's what we look at as being the Fairbairn method of knife. But methods in Fairbairn overlap. And that's one of the powers of Fairbairn. That's one of the things that give it its unique value. The same thing happens with respect to, for example, stick work. Stick work, generally speaking, we don't hold it with the thumb at the back. We hold it more like a hammer, and that gives us different things. But at the same token, you can see the same motions coming in to use that stick in the same fashion as the knife. Now, of course, this being a smaller stick, it's not the same idea as the other one, which we can also do in combat. So we have that ability to work stick with the longer stick, for example, a 36-inch ride baton type of thing, where we have just certain movements. The first movement is across the body to the stomach. Here, I like to teach this movement where the pull into the hip, where I can pull that into the hip, and we see that hand coming into the hip. Why do we do that? Because I work with it like a fulcrum type of thing. So we're looking like a fulcrum. You put a rock, put the stick on top of the rock, and you lift a bigger rock over here with the fulcrum. Well, when I bring that hip in, I'm pushing across the body with the front part of the baton and pulling in with the back part. So I'm pushing that fulcrum across and ramming it in. And so when I go across the body, I go across like that, and I jam that in. Now, of course, if it's a longer baton, it's the same thing. And I jam that in. So that's the first way we do. Now, this goes across the body, gets a hell of a response, and I have no idea why. I've looked into it. I've tried to find the research behind it. There seems to be no anatomical weakness that applies special reactions to this thing, but it works really great. People really concave. Wonderful stuff. Anyway, cross there, and then after that, we have the one where it comes up straight from underneath the chin. So we're coming up straight underneath the chin. So across the body, up the chin is one way to drill those. I'll drill them in a sequence to make it easy to work it. So come across, up the top. Next one you'll know as a terminology of butt stroke. Remember, you have a baton, 6 inches sticking out here. You're going to come across the head this way, or across the body into the body spleen, for example, with the butt. So we have it across stomach, up of the neck, across the top. The next one comes down backwards on an angle, down like this, which is wonderful because it leads right into all these targets in the inside of the body, all the way from the collarbone right in through to the center point of the carotid artery, and then up to the side to the temple. Everything becomes open. Wonderful thing. So we teach it, like I say, sequential. Across, up, butt stroke, bringing it back down, and the last movement is straight up underneath, which could be underneath the nose or into the throat, this type of thing. Great. All methods taught as individual. That's stick work. Great. All right. Perfect. And of course, you're going to be doing drop stick with all these things, and no problem. And as I was saying before, with the knife, the same thing. We're coming across, cutting, and doing the same movements. That snap that you saw with the stick is a snap with the knife. So what we're starting to get here is movements that go through a similar learned behavior pattern of motion. I'm very careful to use the word learned behavior, because this is what I'm getting after here in the system. If I work with Bob, okay, to show you, and I do motions that are based on empty hand technique, edge of hand to be precise, I come across, bang. I come across, bang. I come down, bang. I come angular, bang. You see? Now, if I do the same thing with a baton, I come across, I come down, I come angular, and of course, I have the ability to ram it in as well. The knife, same thing. I can come across, come down angular, and of course, jam it in, same way. So, what we have is motions in the methodology of Fairbairn that are uniform throughout, whether we have an empty hand, something in our hand, or something in our hand. The motion is consistent, the training is consistent in the fact that the learned behavior that we're putting into this exact line of work is the same regardless. Now, we can have knife like this, yes, but we also have that blunt action of cutting into the arm and cutting across the throat, cutting into the arm, cutting across the throat. You know, in this case I'm actually using the wrong terminology because we're cutting across the carotid artery. But you see what I'm getting after. And the same thing with the baton. If the arm was out grabbing me, same shot, same shot, same shot, same shot, same shot, same shot, same shot. And those are bigger movements, and they're movements that can be done while fighting with a knife as opposed to knife fighting. Because we want to look at this, maybe a lot of people are considering this as knife fighting because they're singular actions. But none of these are singular when we start expanding them out through that whole concept of that methodology. They all produce that same thing, that same body flow. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what I do. The movements are the same throughout the main gross motor functions of my application of combat. So that's very interesting because it takes the systems and it blends them together, regardless of whether it's empty-handed or all the way up to blade use, stick use. Vice versa, they have that standalone ability that you saw with the singular movement of pushing the blade across, making the shabs, working the stick across, up, up. Now comes individual, so it expands the methodology, yet it's the exact same methodology all the way through. So one of the advantages of the system, as opposed to the singular techniques, is that the system is self-supporting as we move from one system, or I should say one system, one function to another function, one area of expertise to another expertise. You see? And that's very important because the time it takes to learn it is minimized and the strength in the application is maximized because we're performing more and more precise movement of the same methodology, the same physical movement. We're not practicing 1,000 ways to do something. Practice the same way and apply it 1,000 different ways. Very, very different. Anyway, I find that interesting, and we'll move on from there and see what else we can discover. Thanks very much for your time. Have a great day. Train hard, train well.